Hello and welcome to Warcraft Daily for today, the 8th of August 2013. So in today's news we have new heirloom items, some really cool blue tweets about leveling and just Blizzard's design, 5.4 profession stuff, and 50% off the Winsteed mount if you want to throw your money away for something that doesn't exist. So, heirlooms, right, there are a bunch of new heirloom weapons that are dropping from Garrosh on Flex, Normal and Heroic difficulty. These have what seems to be higher resolution versions of some vanilla horde weapons, and I actually think that they look really cool. I'll be doing a video today just looking at all of them in detail and giving you my thoughts, but yeah, I think it's a really cool idea, and it's actually nice to have a reward for the raiders in terms of heirloom weapons, that kind of thing. I think it's really nice actually. Now, since they dropped from a raid tier end boss, I think they could actually be significantly more powerful than the current heirloom weapons, so I think that would be nice, you know? Give the people who put all their time into raiding something that'll help them out in leveling. I think that's a really good idea. And yeah, they haven't done this before, and it could be great. So, on to the next thing, and these are tweets from Lore. So, most of them are about leveling and that kind of thing. Now, when tweeted about how active players felt in the Wrath story, Lore responded to some saying that Lich King popped up way too much and was, to some people, more annoying than frightening. Really, he popped up like, it was under 5 times, it was maybe 4. And he popped up in ways that made sense, that actually, you know, elicited a bit of fear. Like the first time you find him near Valgard, it worked from a plot perspective, and then if we go way over to the other scale of things, when we met him in ICC, it made sense because we were sneaking into his place, trying to steal his stuff, and we got caught. I think that was really cool. And you felt involved. A lot of players felt way more of a connection with the Lich King. They felt he was way more sort of evil and menacing than Deathwing was, or Garrosh, really. Like, Deathwing was the worst of them all, I think. He just sort of appeared, disappeared in the cinematic, and you never really heard from him until you killed him. I mean, okay, you dealt with his minions, but there was never really a connection between you and the character of Deathwing. Lich King had a character. He had a really well thought out backstory and stuff, and I know that came from the RTSs, but that doesn't mean the Blizzard shouldn't try to do it with new end bosses and stuff. Now, I know Illidan is one thing they always point to as sort of being something that wasn't done that well, and Illidan definitely wasn't done well. I think one of the best Illidan moments was actually in the Netherwing quest, which is funny because that was completely optional. So, yeah, it's weird about how to do bosses. I still think that the Lich King model of both questing and dealing with the main villain was by far superior to what they're doing at the minute. By far. There's no contest. Now, next up, he said that gear tends to be a bigger motivation to players than seeing content or story. I think that's true. It's unfortunately true, but I think it's really just the nature of MMOs. It still doesn't mean that they should be putting less effort into content or story, though, and I don't think they will, so really, that's all good. Next, they said that there was actually some talk about a Twitter user about phasing low-level zones for high-level players to reflect the zone changes, and I actually think this would be great, because it would make the world feel a little bit more vibrant, a little bit more like things are happening, and it would also mean that the old world is sort of caught up in time with the max level players. Now, a lot of people would say, well, what if you want to meet your low-level friend? Then I'd say, if you're partied with them, then just bump everyone down to the lowest phase, which would be the phase of the person who's leveling. I think that would be the best way to do it, but it's really a good idea. Next up, they were talking about time flow, and, well, really, Lich King is dead from 1 to 60, alive from 60 to 80, and then dead again for 80 to 90. And I actually think this was a problem with Cataclysm, because in Cataclysm, they remade level 1 to 60 with Deathwing and all that stuff, and I just don't think that made much sense to do 1 to 60 with Deathwing's story. I think they should have, you know, concentrated on the war, concentrated on the sort of stories of all the different areas and the places, and then really just went full on Deathwing from 80 to 85. Because, yeah, this time flow makes no sense, and it's completely jarring to a new player, and honestly, having both the old world and the sort of old Azeroth with really cool quests, which they no doubt could have done. They actually could have had far more freedom because they weren't focusing on, oh shit, the world's destroyed for 60 levels. I think that would have been a better way to do it. Now, somebody actually suggested making Burning Crusade and Wrath optional in the Caverns of Time. Lore said that it's not the sort of thing that they put off the table, but it would take a lot of developer resources. Essentially, it sounded more like Lore said, it's a great idea, but we really just probably won't do it. I don't know if I'd like this. I think, for players seeing the Burning Crusade, okay, it probably wears thin in your second go through. But the first time, you're still, the zones are so outlandish, they're so interesting. And Blizzard really does best when they're creating new content completely of their own, not an Asian knockoff or something like that. And I think that's what a lot of Burning Crusade really represented. It was just their own creativity sort of roaming free. I think that was really what was best. And then Wrath, I believe, has the best questing in the game, has the best story, the best quest flow. Places in the world still feel like they have a sense of place. And then, it's not a ridiculous grindfest like Vanilla WoW was. So, there's that. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about is 5.4 Profession. I'll try to rattle through this as quick as I can, but, well, there's quite a bit of stuff. So, for Archaeology, the Mantid Artifact Sonic Locator no longer randomizes dig sites when acquired, and it's more difficult to obtain. So, there you go. For Blacksmiths, the new raid and PvP blacksmithing plans have been added, and they can be researched by crafting balanced Trillium ingots, whatever, and these will allow you to learn a random new plan. And the plans for the balanced Trillium ingots can be found from creatures in Pandaria. So for cooking, there are new cooking recipes, including plus 300 primary stats and noodle carts, and these are learned from a mixture of like drops and veil and quests. For enchanting, the items formerly obtained with Valor points now cost Justice points, and the gear crafted from new PvP recipes or plans will be disenchanted into Shag Crystal fragments. Next up we have Engineering. Engineers that are able to acquire Chief Engineer Jard's Journal Engineers that are able to acquire Engineer Jard's Journal can learn to craft Jard's peculiar energy source, a new material which is used for the new engineering mechanics. Pretty much it's like the thing you can make once a day, that sort of item for the new stuff like Skyclaw, that kind of thing. For fishing, the Jewel Dainio have been relocated to the Timeless Isles. For inscription, there are a whole bunch of new techniques and some glyphs changed, and the new techniques can be dropped from like mobs in Pandaria, and some can be found on rares. For leatherworking, new PvP and raid gear is now available. You can unlock these new recipes by making hardened magnificent hides, and the pattern for the hardened magnificent hide can be found from creatures in Pandaria. And you can also find the Drums of Rage drop from creatures in Pandaria. And finally, for tailoring, the new raid and PvP tailoring patterns have been added. They can be researched by crafting Celestial Cloth, and that gives you a new random pattern when you do that. And the Celestial Cloth pattern can be found as a drop from Pandaria creatures. So that's really just bringing the professions up to include the new raid items. Now, the last piece of news is that there's 50% off the Windsteed mount, bringing it down to $12.50. I would of course say don't buy this because you're paying for a mount in a game, and I just don't think it makes sense on top of a subscription fee, but I thought I may as well tell you. That's it for today's show. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.